Good evening. I'm Bill Sargent, and I'm running for Congress in the 14th Congressional District here in Texas. And welcome to Monday Moments with Bill Sargent. Couple of program notes for you before we start. First of all, in order to ask me a question, you must go to my website. That's www.sargeforcongress, that's SARGEFOR, Congress.com, and click on the link underneath my picture. At that point, it will take you to the place where you can enter a question. Just enter the question, hit submit, and it will come to my moderator who will ask me the question. So you must use that way to ask us questions. Second thing you must do is, second thing you should probably know is that the chat function on the Ustream program will not be monitored. So if you have a question and you put something on chat, we're not going to pay any attention to it. The only way you can do it is through my website. The third thing is that there's a program change. Next Monday and the Monday after, I have an event that I must go to on each one of those 2 Mondays. So we're going to move the program from Monday night to Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. So we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday night for the next 2 weeks instead of just Monday night. At that point, I'll turn it over to Philip and go ahead and see what questions we got for us today. Philip, you got a question?
Grace from Jefferson County asks, I understand that you are a 20-year Navy veteran. Can you tell me where you served and some of the things you did during your service?
Sure. I joined the Navy as a seaman recruit, became a radarman, and served in the enlisted ranks for 6 years. I then went to officer candidate school, and after officer candidate school, I served in the Navy for another, I don't know how many years, total 20 years, retired as lieutenant commander. I served on a destroyer in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. I served also at Sink-Pack Fleet in Hawaii. And I also served as the executive officer of a surface division in Washington, D.C. as a reservist. I was one of the people who was chosen as 3 people who went to speak to I guess about 30 admirals and generals from the Marine Corps and Navy admirals, as to how to improve the reserve program. At that time, I made a recommendation that that you integrate the people who are in the military in the reserves into the actual unit where they're going to go serve. They weren't doing that up to that point. They ended up. I can't take credit for the fact that they did it, but I certainly gave them the idea. Was that they started doing that. So now, if you get activated, you're going to go to the destroyer or the intelligence unit or whatever that you actually were assigned to. And when you drill, you'll drill as part of that unit. So when you get there, people will know who you are. They'll be used to who you are and what they know your capabilities, and it becomes a more cohesive unit. So that's basically what I did while I was serving. Served 20 years. I'm the only candidate in this race who has served in the military and am a retired veteran. Another question?
Mike from Brazoria County asks this question. Somebody handed me one of your brochures which said you have 25 years of legislative experience. Who do you work for and what did you do for them?
Well, I have 25 years experience in legislative work. I started out with working for Buzz Lukens from Ohio. I was his field rep. He was a congressman from Ohio, Republican, worked as his field rep and also as press secretary. I worked then for Lou Fry from the Space Coast of Florida. I did legislation for him on the Energy and Commerce Committee, also involved with the Science and Technology Committee, which he was both a member of both those committees. Then I worked for Jesse Helms for a short period of time, helped him set up his office when he first came to Washington. And then I went to work for the Department of Commerce doing legislation for them. At the Commerce Department, I covered a lot of different kinds of issues and got a lot of bills enacted. One was the Fire Control and Prevention Act. Another one was the Export Administration Act. Most people probably haven't heard of that one, but it's the act upon which the sanctions that we currently have for North Korea, part of those sanctions are based on the authority from that act. So it wasn't a small thing. It has to do with controlling exports of what you can export, what you cannot export. Worked on the Export Trading Company Act, which we got passed. That's where small companies can come together and can collude, if we can use that term, to go ahead and to work together for an economy of scale in order to promote exports. And it had to do with exporting as opposed to importing. But that's another bill I worked on. I got, I mean, it goes on and on. I got police powers for the federal agents at in the Commerce Department. So that's my experience in Washington. I also worked for the Galveston County Clerk and handled the elections for him. When I did that, I worked in Austin on behalf of the county clerk in an effort to try to help improve the election process. My experience there was I had 8 bills in 2 sessions that I wanted to get passed. All but one got passed. So my record in Austin is 88%, or 87 plus something or other. So I have a very good record of getting accomplishments done. That's a whole lot better than what my opponent's record is. His record is 8 bills total in 10 years of service, and 7 of those were in Austin. So if you want something to get accomplished in the legislative area, you might want to think about who's going to be able to get that done for you. Another question?
Peter from Jefferson County asked this question. I hear you are running to replace Weber as our congressman. Our current congressman seems to be pretty conservative to me. At least he seems to vote right. Why are you running?
Well, I'm running because, let's put it this way. We're both conservatives. I would suspect that most of our votes would be similar. But I'm not an in-your-face conservative. I can tell you, having worked on Capitol Hill for over 20 years, you don't go up there and label yourself. You don't go up and say, guns blazing, I'm going to join the Freedom Caucus, because you've just now alienated yourself from talking to certain people because they won't listen to you because you've labeled yourself. I'm a conservative. I will vote that way. The problem is that you need to be able to bring people together, and you need to be able to get consensus and to talk to people on both sides of the aisle in order to get things done. That's not happening in Washington today. I mean, people are yelling and screaming at each other, and I don't like you because you're a Republican. I don't like you because you're a Democrat. That's foolishness. When you work issues, especially issues like I want to work, that cross party lines, you can form a consensus, an alliance, a group of people coming together to get things done that are important for the country and for this district. And that's what I want to do. I'm tired of all this inner bickering between people. We need to treat people with respect. If you treat them with respect, by and large, they're going to treat you with respect. And they may not, but that's how I'm going to treat them. I'm not going to go down that road. Hope that answers your question.
Jeff from Galveston County wants to know, what is your take on funding the government through short-term spending bills?
Well, let's see. Let's start by saying that the Congress we have now is basically dysfunctional. We're supposed to. The House and the Senate are supposed to pass a budget. They're supposed to pass 12 appropriation bills every year. Bottom line is they haven't done it. I mean, they haven't passed a budget for how many years? I mean, it's been since the 1990s sometime. So, and we've had this year, in the last 13 months, we've had 7 continuing resolutions for short-term funding measures, and we may very well have another one in February. That's got to stop. The House passed all 12 appropriations bills as an omnibus bill, as opposed to individually, and they passed it in the middle of September of last year. That gave the Senate less than 7 legislative days to deal with it, to vet it, to consider it, and to do something with it. They didn't do it. I mean, the House didn't give it time. From my perspective, if you're going to go ahead and do your work, the 12 appropriation bills ought to be passed before the July 4th recess. If it's not done before the July 4th recess, then don't take a recess. stay there. I mean, the public is paying us to do a job. Our job is to get that job done. If we're not going to get the job done, then they shouldn't pay us. So stay at work and get the job done. If you don't get it done by August, don't have an August recess. I mean, I'm about getting things accomplished, and we need to focus on getting those things done, and it's just not happening. And we need to get it done. So, yeah, I don't like short-term funding. I don't like those kind of things. So that's where I'm coming from.
Sonia from Galveston says, you are for building a coastal barrier system. First, why? Second, where is the money coming from? It seems like it is going to cost a lot of money we don't have.
Well, let's talk first about why we need to build it. Coastal barrier system is really important. If we don't build it, and when a hurricane comes up that channel, up the Houston Ship Channel, we're talking about 80% of the military-grade aviation fuel gone for 1.5 to 3 years. We're talking on the commercial side of the aviation fuel, about 60% gone for the same period of time. The cars we drive, the trucks we drive, the polymers that they used, the plastics they used to make those cars come right off that channel. Pharmaceuticals come off that channel. It's really critical that we get this done because it's going to affect just us and the 27,000 people who work on that channel and the 200,000 people who are contractors who support them. We're talking about this having a national impact. I mean, the people who make cars, the car industry is going to be affected. And all this is going to happen when that happens, if we don't protect it. So we need to get it done. Where's the money coming from? I'm not really sure where the money's coming from, but the question I've got is, we have a request out there for $81 billion in relief money for taking care of Hurricane Harvey and the other hurricanes that occurred this year. Where's that money coming from? The bottom line is we need to spend this money ahead of time so we can make sure that we don't have a problem downstream. Because downstream, it's not going to be $100 billion like Harvey is. It's going to be a whole lot magnitude worse than that. So we need to deal with that. We need to deal with it ahead of time before it happens. And I told our congressman over 3 years ago how to get this done, actually, almost 3.5 years ago. The way you do it is you tell the Corps of Engineers, you're going to build this thing. You're going to do it in this period of time, and here's the money. That's how you get it done. Now, what happened was that Senator Cornyn introduced a bill, and Mr. Weber went ahead and took that bill, and which Mr. Cornyn drafted, and introduced in the House side. Didn't go anywhere, had no hearings, nothing happened to it. So Mr. Cornyn put it into the WIN Act, which is the Water Infrastructure Bill, and it passed. But what passed was simply saying to the Corps of Engineers and the Army Secretary, the Secretary of the Army, what we want you to do is to take into account the local data when you prepare your plan. The Corps has already told us they're going to do that, so that doesn't do anything. You can say, hey, I helped get this thing built. No, you didn't. And the other thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way is why all the photo ops? Why get in a police helicopter and fly up and down the coast and see where the coastal barrier system is going to be built? I know where it's going to be built. I don't need to do that. I don't need to go to Holland and find out how the gates are going to be built. That's for the engineers to do. That's not the job of a congressman. Congressman's job is to say, get it done. Here are the resources you need to get it done. That's what they ought to be doing. And it's not happening. And we need to get it happen. Next. Any other questions?
Miguel from Brazoria County asked this question. How do you feel about those of us who are brought into the U.S. illegally as children? Some of us are working, paying taxes. We're helping the economy. Do you want to deport us?
That's a real sensitive question these days. Let's go back and start with a couple of things. First of all, let me say that the one thing that's really important is we must have border security. We must do that. Some people think that means building a wall across the entire southern border. I'm not sure building a wall is going to be something that's going to be useful. I would say that part of it would be useful. There are certain places where you need a wall, and that I'm sure would support that. But there are other places where it's more, it makes more sense to do it through electronic surveillance. What the Border Patrol agents are telling me is that they need the data in real time. I mean, sometimes they're getting data as late as 7, 8 hours after people have started to cross the border. And by that time, it's too late to deploy people and get boots on the ground and stop them. They've already, scattered. So we need to get that done. Now, the other question, part of your question, if I remember it correctly, Philip, is that there's no way that we're going to be able to deport 12 plus million people. Nor am I sure we want to do that. I'm not for amnesty. I'm certainly not for that. And I'm not for I guess the way to say it is that I'm not for amnesty, but it would hurt our economy as well. So we need to be able to make a decision as to who stays. So, for example, people are criminals, people who violate the law. Take those people and get them out of the country. Those people certainly should go. When we're dealing with the people who are the ones who are brought in as children, which I think is what your question was partly about, do I want to deport them? No, I'm not sure I want to do that. Do I want to make it so that they can, if somebody, they're now in their 20s or teens, late teens, early 20s, if they're duly employed and they're going ahead and they're paying taxes and they're being good citizens, even though they're not citizens, then I would not object to a path to citizenship for them, but I would require them to go ahead and to go through the citizenship process. So they cannot vote, they cannot do any of that until they've actually gone through the actual citizenship process, which takes, 5-10 years. And at that point, once they've contributed and taken an action on their own to be good citizens, then at that point, I would say don't deport them. But at the same time, I really have a problem with illegal immigration. I'm for regular or legal immigration, but there's just no way you can deport everybody. It's not going to happen, and especially people who are educated and who are helping the economy. We want to keep those people here, but we also need to take care of the magnets. I mean, we don't want to give people who come in illegally free health care. We don't want to give them, free education, food stamps, etc. We don't want to do that. We want to do something to we don't want to draw people here for that reason. And of course, the other part of that is sanctuary cities or states. If you're talking about California, if a state or a city is not willing to cooperate with immigration officials, then at that point, I don't think they should be having federal money. I mean, there's strings attached. Every time you take federal money, there's strings attached. Well, those are one of the strings. And so you need to deal with, making, if those people aren't going to play the, help our immigration service, then they shouldn't be getting the money. Hope that answers your question. No, I don't want to deport you. Next question. We have more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Georgia from Jefferson County wants you to answer this question. How do you feel about gun control issues, and what can we do to stop gun violence and keep our children safe?
Well, first of all, we've got a lot of laws on the books. We ought to enforce them. When you look at where we see we have most gun violence, in the past, it's mainly been in gun-free zones. And the question is why? Well, it's because, guess what? If you're in a gun-free zone, you're likely not to have somebody shooting back at you. We have in Texas, of course, the ability to carry a gun openly, open carry. I have a carry license. I'm not going to carry openly because somebody walks into a 7-Eleven and I'm there with a gun. I'm the first target, and anybody who's in their right mind who has a carry license is not going to carry it openly. I guess some people might want to make a statement, but I don't think there are very many of those around who are responsible gun owners. How do we keep our children safe? Well, I'm not sure I have an answer for that. I mean, you never know what's going to happen or when people are going to do. Um, I wouldn't object to people who are trained, who are working in schools, be it a janitor or a teacher or whoever, that they be allowed to have weapons. I'm not saying we should arm every school. That's not what I'm saying. But if somebody feels like they want to do that and wants to take on that responsibility, and they're trained, then I wouldn't have any problem with people like that having weapons. I can tell you that most of the police officers I know, and I know quite a few of them, I can't think of one who is opposed to concealed carry or to having citizens who are responsible carrying weapons. And I agree with that. Is there another question?
Yeah. Rose from Jefferson County asked this question. I'm a Democrat. I've voted Democrat all my life. A friend of mine heard you speak at a local candidates forum here in Beaumont recently and said she is considering voting for you. How can a Democrat vote for you in the Republican primary?
Well, if you want to vote Democratic, then you can't vote for me in the Republican primary. You have to choose one or the other. As you all know, I used to run the election process here in Galveston County. When you walk into that polling place, they're going to ask you, what ballot do you want, Republican or Democrat? Each person has to make their own decision what they're going to do. If they're going to vote Democrat, they're going to get a Democratic ballot. If they're going to vote Republican, they're going to get a Republican ballot. So each person has to make their own decision on that. I can tell you that there's some people who are Democrats here in Galveston County who will vote for me. There's some people who said they would vote for me who are Democrats who I said, you know what, because you're an election judge and I know the people in your party here, and you're a good election judge, I think it'd be better if you didn't vote for me. You vote in the Democratic Party because still in my heart, it's important to me that the election process be run efficiently and well and with people who know what they're doing. And there are a lot of Democrats who fit that category. So there's some Democrats who I'd say, don't change parties. Because if you change parties, it's going to affect how we run elections. And that's not what I want to have happen. At the same time, there are a lot of other people who are not working as election judges and election workers who are Democrats who say, I like what you have to say. I like the fact that you're honest and you're above board and you're willing to go ahead and to work with people from all different backgrounds. And if they want to come vote for me, I'd love it. That's great. But I want to tell you that event we had over in Jefferson County a week or so ago, I really enjoyed that. I got down, I took the microphone off the table and went down and actually into the audience and talked to the people. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do as people who are representing you. We're supposed to be with the people. We're supposed to listen to them. We're supposed to talk with them and hear what they have to say. We may not always agree. I can tell you there are people over there who are Democrats who said, I don't agree with you, but you're a guy who I could vote for. Well, okay. But the bottom line is I'm a Republican. I'm running as a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. And if a Democrat wants to come over and vote for me, great. But, the bottom line is I'm still a Republican. I have been since Barry Goldwater ran in '64, and I worked with the Goldwater campaign back then. So I've been a Republican all my life, and I will remain so. But more importantly than that, I'm a conservative Republican. I'm a constitutional conservative Republican, and that's not going to change either. Any other questions?
Yes. Bess in Galveston asked another gun-related question. I am a gun owner and I have hearing impediment because of noise levels at my local gun range. I know this is a sensitive subject, but how do you feel about letting gun owners purchase silencers to help reduce noise-related hearing loss?
That is a sensitive question. I don't want, having worked with law enforcement for many years, I'm not a police officer, by the way, but having worked with law enforcement, I can tell you that, that people are worried about perps getting things like that, that's an issue. But I think if you made it so that they had to get a background check like we do for when we buy a handgun, if you went through an extensive vetting process and somebody wanted a silencer, I wouldn't have any problem with that. I mean, you have two kinds of people. Of course, you can always separate things into two kinds of people, but you got two kinds of people. You got those people who are responsible gun owners, who use their weapons responsibly, and who are not going to go out and just knock somebody off. And then you got those who aren't. The ones who are responsible ought to be able to get those. I certainly wouldn't want somebody with a mental case getting one, nor would I want somebody who's got criminal offenses. But otherwise, as long as you have some kind of a vetting process that makes sure that the right people get them and who have a need, then that's fine. I wouldn't have any problem with that. Are we getting close to how many more questions we got coming?
I got three on the. Three
Okay.
right now.
Okay, well, go ahead. Let's do those three, and then we'll hang it up because we were going to make this 15 minutes. We're now going on 30. Go ahead. Sir?
I'm trying to read the question here. Will you continue this show after you are elected?
Well, what?
Question is, will you continue this show after you are elected?
Well, I'm not sure I'd use this method, but I'll tell you what I would do. I would go ahead and I believe in having an open dialogue with people, especially the people who I'm representing. So I would have, I would have a forum, where people could come and talk and ask questions of me. I know that there have been issues in the past with some members of Congress where someone will come to a town hall and they'll come to disrupt things. The rules for this show is that you can't ask a question unless you live in the district. So if I was holding a town hall, I would want to have somebody show an ID and show that they live in the district. They live in the district, they can come in. The way I'd probably also do that is I'd have people fill out cards for what their questions are. And I have those questions go to somebody who's not attached to me or my office, who would pull them together, someone who's has no vested interest, and who would then say, here's a number of questions related to healthcare or immigration or whatever it is, and then I'd answer those questions. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to do it like our current congressman does it, which is to do it in an audio format. I wouldn't mind doing that either, or this format, either way. The problem you've got when you use this kind of a format is, although we're not doing this, but you can screen those calls. You can say, well, I'll take this one, but I won't take that one. The reason we're screening calls here is to make sure the person who asked that, like the person who asked this question, we want that person to be able to make sure that they're one of the people who lives in the 14th congressional district. That's the only reason we're doing that. So yes, I will continue to do this. I'll either do it this way, I'll do it in an audio format, I'll do it in physical town hall meetings. It's really, really important to me that people be able to have access to me, to carry on a conversation with me. Now, I'll be representing 500,000 people plus. I can't talk to everybody. I understand that. But I want people to feel that they can reach me. The other thing is, constituents, this is kind of off the subject, but constituent service is really important to me. I want to be able to make sure that the people who call me get a person on the phone. And they don't have to push a button that says, press 1 for English. I want people to be able to reach me or reach my office, and I don't want to have people put off till tomorrow what they can do today. And I know we're running short on time here, but let me tell you a story of what I'm talking about. When I ran the election process here in Galveston, we had that change in 2011 session of the state legislature, where they gave us photo ID. One of the photo IDs that was acceptable was called a certificate of citizenship. I wanted to show it to the people I was training. I wanted to show it, tell them what this thing was. But I didn't have it. Secretary of State's office didn't have a copy of it. Nobody seemed to have a copy of it. So I called our current congressman's office and I said, can you guys help me get this? They said, well, the person who's important, who's going to do this is out of the office right now. They'll call you back. I said, okay. So they called me back about 5 or 6 days later. But I wasn't going to wait for that. So I called Senator Cornyn's office. And I said, can you help me? And they said, well, we handle all that out of Dallas-Fort Worth. I said, okay. So I called Dallas-Fort Worth. And he said, do you have a fax machine? I said, yeah. And he said, well, write us a letter and send it to us by fax. We'll get back to you in a couple of days. You got to be kidding me. So I said, so I called Cruz's office. And I got this young guy on the phone. I don't know who he was, but really good guy. And he said, nobody's ever asked us for that before. So we went ahead. He said, can I put you on hold for a minute? I said, sure. So I kept working. And about, 5 or 6 minutes later, he came back on the phone and he said, I think I can get that for you, but I got to put you on hold a little while longer. I said, fine. Another 4 or 5 minutes later, he came back and said, I've got it for you. We're not going to send it to you. That's the kind of constituent service I want to have. It starts at the top. Cruz got it right. His staff got it right. I went to his AA, his administrative assistant for Cruz in Washington, and I said, this is the kind of person who you need to keep around, because that's the kind of person who gets the job done and takes care of constituents. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to take care of the needs of my people and be able to take care of them. I don't care where they're coming from. I don't care what their background is. If they're a constituent, they need to be able to get quality service out of their congressman. And that's what I'm going to try to do. You said you got a couple more questions for me?
Yeah, Jeff, the same Jeff has another question. I don't know if he listened to the previous question, but he asked, what can be done to get the IDOC started?
Well, it all starts in Congress. I mean, if you don't follow the suggestion I have, which is telling the Corps of Engineers, get it done and do it in this period of time and here's the money. If you don't do that, then you got to wait on the Corps process, the Corps of Engineers process. They're coming out with a preliminary report sometime in the middle of this year. Then they're going to take, with different options, and then people have a public comment period, and then after that, it'll go to be studied further, and sometime in I don't know, 2020, 22, 23, something like that, they will then come up with a final project, and then it's a matter of when the money becomes available. Now we're talking somewhere between 12 and $15 billion. That's a lot of money out of the Corps of Engineers budget. So unless Congress says you're going to do this and here's the money, it's going to take a long time for them to get that job done, and it may it could take decades to get it done. I don't know. So that's not the way you do it. Now, I have a friend of mine who lives in my subdivision who worked for the Corps of Engineers. And I said, John, tell me, what impact would it have, the way I wanted to do it, what impact would that have on the Corps of Engineers? And he shrugged his shoulders and he said, we did it in New Orleans in 5 years. What's the problem? Congress tells me, go ahead and do it. Here's the money. We get it done. I said, okay, well, did you skip any of the process? Did you not do an environmental check, or did you do whatever? Did you skip anything? He said, no. We just put it at the front of the line. Congress said, do it, gave us the money, what we needed to get the job done. We did it. We did it in 5 years. Well, that's the approach I'm talking about, and what we ought to do here for this. We got to get. I'm not going to say, I want the Corps to do everything it's supposed to do, but I want to put it at the head of the list. I don't want it at the back of the list.
All right.
Let's take one more question and then we'll go.
Well, Jeff said, can the moderator speak louder?
Can the moderator speak louder? That's you.
One Philip. Last question.
There you go.
Is it true that this is from Michelle and Galveston, is it true that every time Congress passes another short-term funding measure, that money continues to flow to Planned Parenthood and funding for Obamacare is continued? Is that true?
That is true. Unless the Congress, in its wisdom, says, we're going to defund the part that's Planned Parenthood. They haven't done that. So when your congressman votes for a continuing resolution, he's voting to continue the funding for Planned Parenthood. But then again, keep in mind, congressmen have to make decisions that are. I mean, for example, if you increase the amount of money that's going from the military, and that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. if you increase the money for the military, but you're also going to be funding Planned Parenthood, that puts a congressman in a real tough position. Because from my perspective, we need to take care of rebuilding our military. I mean, we're in deep trouble with our military. We need to get that up to speed. And the bottom line is it hadn't happened yet. Mr. Trump wants to get it happen, and people in Congress want to get it done. But when you got to make choices here. To the extent you can modify the rule and have take Planned Parenthood funding out or something like that, then fine. But there are choices you got to make, and sometimes you got to take the stuff that's not so good with the stuff that is good. So you need to take that into consideration. Okay, folks, I think that's about enough. We've gone for 45 minutes or whatever it is. I really appreciated this time. I appreciate the questions. We're going to continue this next week on Tuesday night, not on Monday night. Feel free to submit your questions early if you want to. If you want to do it while I'm online, that's great too. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed this. And I appreciate the fact that there are people out there listening who care enough to submit questions. So God bless you. God bless our nation. Until next Tuesday night, God bless you, and thanks so much for the time. Have a good day.